The infirmary on the starship Aurelia was always quiet at this hour. Lights dimmed to a soft silver glow, medical drones floated silently between beds, and the low hum of the engines echoed through the walls like a distant heartbeat. Commander Elias Renn sat on the edge of his bed, rolling his stiff shoulder after another skirmish along the border worlds. The battles had been fierce lately, human forces clashing with alien factions whose motives were still shrouded in secrecy. Yet, for all the blood and tension, Elias found himself looking forward to these late hours in the medbay. 'Cause she would be there. Lira, an alien nurse assigned to the Aurelia as part of a fragile treaty. Her species, the Ilari, had skin that shimmered faintly under light, as if woven with starlight. Her voice carried a melody that no human throat could replicate, and her calmness seemed to cut through the worst of pain. Elias had seen her patch up soldiers without a tremor in her hands, even when the ship was under fire. He had watched her lean close to patients, whispering in her language words that seemed to soothe wounds deeper than flesh. And somewhere in those nights, somewhere between the smell of antiseptic and the echo of alarms, he had realized he was watching her too much, listening too closely. And worse, she had started to notice. "Your shoulder," Lira said now, stepping close, her long fingers glowing faintly as she activated the nanite scanner. "You overstrained it again." "Comes with the job," Elias replied, forcing a smirk. Her amber eyes narrowed. "Or perhaps you enjoy the excuse to see me here." Elias froze, his throat dry. She had never been so blunt. He laughed awkwardly, scratching the back of his neck. "Maybe both." To his surprise, her lips curved in what might have been the Ilari version of a smile. But before either of them could say more, the medbay doors swished open. A squad of humans and Ilari soldiers marched in, cheering and calling his name. "Commander Renn," one shouted. "You're alive. We thought you were done for." Another clapped him on the back. "You've got to give us a speech, sir. We need something to boost morale." Elias groaned inwardly. He hated being put on the spot, especially half-bandaged and with Lira watching. But before he could protest, one soldier shouted a joke that changed everything. "Go on, Commander. Propose to the nurse already. That'd cheer us up." Laughter erupted. The tension of war was so heavy that even ridiculous humor felt like oxygen. Elias tried to wave it off, but dozens of eyes were on him, half expecting him to play along. And then, before his mind could catch up with his body, he dropped to one knee. It was supposed to be a joke, just something to break the tension. He looked up at Lira, heart hammering, and said, "Lira, will you marry me?" Ears. The medbay erupted with noise. And then the impossible happened. Lira placed her hand on her chest, tilted her head, and whispered, "I agree." The room exploded with applause. Soldiers clapped, whistled, and shouted until the walls shook. But Elias could only stare, speechless, because in her culture, what had she just done? Middle. When the cheers finally subsided, Elias pulled her aside into a quieter corner of the infirmary. "Lira," he hissed, "you know I was joking, right?" Her golden eyes studied him with unreadable calm. "You spoke words of binding before many witnesses. In Ilari tradition, such a vow cannot be undone lightly." Elias blinked. "You're telling me you just accepted a real marriage proposal?" "Yes." Her voice didn't waver. He ran a hand over his face. Stars above. The soldiers had already spread the news across the Aurelia. By the time Elias left the infirmary, half the crew was congratulating him. Even Captain Daver, who normally treated every personal matter as irrelevant, gave him a rare grin. "Good for you, Commander," the captain said. A union between human and Ilari. Now that's the kind of thing that could inspire the whole fleet. Elias tried to correct him, but the words stuck. Because deep down, part of him wasn't sure he wanted to. That night, he returned to the medbay, unable to sleep. Lira was still there, tending to the wounded. "You know this is spiraling out of control, right?" he said softly. "I am aware," she replied without looking up. "Then why agree in the first place?" Finally, she set down her tools and turned to face him. Her eyes gleamed with strange intensity. "Because I trust you," she said. "And because the crew needed hope. Do you not see? For them, our union is not only about us. It is a symbol of cooperation, of survival, of the possibility of peace." Elias stared at her, his chest tightening. "But what about what you want? What if you didn't want this?" Lira tilted her head. "And what if I did?" For the first time, Elias couldn't find words. Days turned into weeks. The mock proposal became the talk of the fleet. Soldiers wore makeshift rings as good luck charms. Messages came from other ships, praising their union as proof that old wounds could heal. But beneath the surface, the war worsened. A faction of Ilari separatists, opposed to any alliance with humans, launched a devastating attack on a supply convoy. Casualties mounted. One night, as the Aurelia floated in the shadow of a dying star, Lira found Elias staring at the stars through the observation deck. "They will use us," she said quietly. Elias turned. "What do you mean?" "Our so-called marriage. Leaders on both sides will see it as a banner to wave. They will parade us in front of cameras, claim it proves the war is over when it is not." He sighed. "And you? How do you feel about that?" Lira stepped closer, her faintly glowing hand brushing his. "I agreed not for them. I agreed because when you knelt before me, even if it was jest, I wanted it to be real." The words hit him harder than any battlefield wound. Before he could respond, the ship's alarms blared. Enemy ships were approaching. Climax. The battle that followed was unlike any Elias had fought. The separatists weren't trying to destroy the Aurelia. They were targeting one person, Lira. They had learned of the union. To them, her acceptance of a human proposal was treachery. They wanted her dead, and they were willing to slaughter an entire ship to achieve it. As plasma fire ripped through the hull, Elias found himself at her side, shielding her from collapsing beams, guiding her through smoke-filled corridors. "You have to get to the escape pods," he shouted. But she shook her head. "If I run, they win. They prove our bond is nothing." Elias clenched his jaw. "Then we fight together." They reached the command deck just as separatist boarding parties stormed aboard. Blaster fire lit the chamber in blue and red. Soldiers fell. And in the chaos, Elias and Lira stood back to back, fighting as one. He fired precise bursts, cutting down attackers. She wielded a healer's staff infused with Ilari energy, releasing shockwaves that sent enemies sprawling. At one point, Elias was struck in the chest, thrown to the floor. Through blurred vision, he saw a separatist raising a blade over him. Then Lira screamed his name. Her staff flared like a star, unleashing a blast that hurled the attacker across the room. She dropped to her knees, pressing her glowing hands to his wound. "Stay with me," she whispered fiercely. "You cannot leave me now." Pain seared him, but her touch steadied his heartbeat.